The sharp sound of a school bell echoed through the silent hallways, but there were no teachers to usher students into their classrooms. No laughter, no chatter, only an eerie stillness that sent shivers down their spines. Daniel, a high school senior, stood near the locked entrance doors, his fists clenching as he tried to process what had just happened. Moments ago, the school had been a normal place, filled with the usual stress of exams. But now, the air smelled of decay, and blood smeared the once pristine tile floors. "What's happening?" whispered Lisa, her voice barely audible over the heavy breathing of the students gathered near her. "We're locked in," muttered Jason, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by unease. "All the exits are sealed." The intercom crackled to life, and a distorted voice filled the air. "Students of Redwood High, welcome to your final exam. The rules are simple: pass the test, and you live. Fail, and you join the Horde." A collective shudder ran through the students. The voice continued, its tone mocking and cold. "Your school has been overrun. The infected are inside, and the only way out is to complete a series of challenges. Prove your intelligence, strength, and survival instincts. Succeed, and the doors will open. Fail, and you become part of the next question on the test." Silence. Then a single, terrified voice broke through. "This isn't funny," screamed Emily, her voice rising in panic. "Let us out." A loud bang came from the hallway. Something, or someone, was trying to get in. Then the screams began. Through the glass panel of the main door, they saw a teacher, Mr. Thompson, stumbling toward them. But something was wrong. His face was pale, his eyes clouded, and his mouth hung open, dripping with fresh blood. A gasp escaped Daniel's lips as the teacher suddenly lunged at the door, slamming against it with unnatural force. His hands clawed at the glass, fingers bent at odd angles, fingernails broken and bloody. More figures appeared behind him, students and staff, their movements jerky and unnatural. Their once familiar faces were twisted in expressions of hunger. They're zombies," muttered Chris, his face draining of color. A loud beep sounded from the intercom. "Your first challenge begins now." The lights in the school flickered before going completely out. The hallway was swallowed in darkness. A few students fumbled for their phones, their screens casting eerie glows across their terrified faces. "Stay together," Daniel whispered. "We need to figure out what's going on." The intercom crackled again. "In the next 5 minutes, all classroom doors will unlock. Inside each room is a clue to your escape. However." A loud, metallic click echoed through the halls. "Some of these rooms contain your former classmates, now very eager to meet you. Choose wisely." Panic spread like wildfire. Some students bolted immediately, while others hesitated, eyes darting toward the classroom doors that now stood slightly ajar. The darkness beyond them was suffocating. Daniel took a deep breath. "We can't stay here," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "We need to move. Now." Lisa grabbed his arm. "But what if we pick the wrong room?" A scream rang out from one of the hallways. A student had run ahead and chosen poorly. The sound of flesh tearing and bones crunching filled the air, followed by silence. Jason swallowed hard. "Guess we better not fail the first question." With no other choice, the group moved forward, stepping into the unknown. The exam had begun. The hallway stretched out in eerie silence, the flickering glow of phone screens barely cutting through the darkness. Daniel, Lisa, Jason, and a handful of others stood frozen, their breath shallow as they stared at the slightly ajar classroom doors. Behind them, the guttural moans of the undead echoed through the school, growing closer with each second. "Pick a door," Jason whispered, gripping a broken chair leg like a weapon. "No," Daniel said firmly. "We need a plan." Lisa shook her head. "We don't have time for a plan. Did you hear that scream? If we wait too long, we'll end up like. A loud bang interrupted her. Something had slammed against the lockers further down the hallway. A shadowed figure staggered into view, a student, his shirt torn and bloodied. His arm hung limply at his side, his head twitching unnaturally. Then he turned toward them. Lisa gasped, stepping back. "Oh my God, that's..." Before she could finish, the student lunged forward, a terrifying gurgling growl ripping from his throat. His eyes were blank, his mouth stained with fresh blood. "A zombie! Run!" Daniel shouted. The group scattered. Jason kicked open the nearest classroom door and shoved Lisa inside. Daniel and Chris followed, slamming the door shut behind them. The moment it clicked into place, something heavy crashed against the wood. Bam! Bam! The zombie outside clawed at the door, its growls vibrating through the walls. Jason stumbled back, panting. That was way too close. Daniel scanned the room. It was one of the science labs, rows of tables, Bunsen burners, cabinets filled with supplies. And, something else. There was a body slumped over one of the desks. Lisa stifled a scream. "Oh no, is it?" Daniel slowly approached the figure, gripping a metal stool as a weapon. The person wasn't moving. A pool of dried blood spread beneath their head. Chris gulped. "Is he, one of them?" Daniel nudged the body with the stool. No response. He exhaled. "Dead. For real." Jason walked over, frowning. "Then where's the clue?" The intercom crackled again. "Congratulations, you have chosen wisely. But survival isn't just about luck. It's about knowledge. Your first test is one of intelligence. Hidden in this room is the first clue to your escape. Solve it before time runs out." Daniel's heartbeat quickened. "Time runs out?" As if in response, a loud creaking noise echoed from above. They all looked up. A ventilation grate in the ceiling was shifting. Something was inside. "Find the clue," Daniel said quickly. "Now." Chris rushed to the teacher's desk, rifling through drawers. Lisa grabbed a textbook, flipping through its pages as if the answer might be scribbled inside. Jason checked the whiteboard, but it was wiped clean. Daniel's eyes landed on the dead student. Something about his body position. He was reaching toward a cabinet. "Over here." Daniel called, pulling the cabinet door open. Inside were stacks of old papers, a few glass beakers, and a notebook. Daniel grabbed it and flipped it open. The first page had only one thing written on it. "The key is in the teacher's hands." "What does that mean?" Lisa asked. A loud thump from the ceiling. Then a deep, wet snarl. Daniel's mind raced. Teacher's hands. He turned toward the front desk. The dead teacher wasn't in the chair, but the skeleton. Jason shouted, pointing at the anatomical skeleton model in the corner of the room. Its bony fingers were curled around something. Daniel lunged forward, prying open the hand. A small, cold key dropped into his palm. Click. The vent above them burst open. A twisted, emaciated zombie dropped from the ceiling. "Go, go, go!" Daniel roared. Chris yanked the door open, and the group bolted out of the room just as the creature crashed onto the desk behind them. The hallway was even darker now. More classroom doors were open. More choices to make. But they had the key. To what, they didn't know yet. The test wasn't over. It had only just begun. The group sprinted down the dark hallway, their breaths ragged, their bodies trembling from the close call in the science lab. The growls of the undead echoed behind them, but the school was a maze of shadows and uncertainty, every turn a potential death trap. Daniel clutched the key tightly in his palm. We need to figure out what this opens. Lisa glanced back, panic in her eyes. That thing came from the ceiling. What if more of them are in the vents? Chris swallowed hard. Then we don't stop moving. Jason skidded to a halt near a stairwell leading to the second floor. We need a safe place to figure this out. Safe? Lisa scoffed. You think anywhere in this school is safe? Another loud crash from somewhere behind them made the decision for them. Upstairs. Now. Daniel ordered. The group dashed up the steps, taking 2 at a time. As they reached the top, they were met with an unexpected sight, 3 other students standing near a barricaded classroom door. One of them, a tall and broad-shouldered guy named Marcus, turned toward them, gripping a fire extinguisher like a weapon. His expression hardened. Whoa, whoa. Stop right there, he barked. Daniel instinctively raised his hands. We're not infected. A girl with dyed red hair, Ava, narrowed her eyes. That's exactly what an infected person would say. Lisa exhaled sharply. Are you serious? Look at us. No bites, no blood. The third student, a scrawny boy named Eric, peeked out from behind Marcus. Let them in. The more of us, the better chance we have. Marcus hesitated before lowering his weapon. Fine. But one wrong move, he gestured toward the barricaded classroom. Inside. Now. Daniel exchanged a glance with Jason before they all shuffled into the room. Marcus and Ava quickly pushed a desk back in front of the door. The room was dimly lit by the pale moonlight filtering through the windows. The desks had been pushed aside, and makeshift weapons, chair legs, a mop handle, a metal rod from a locker, were piled in one corner. Smart move, Chris muttered, nodding at the barricade. Marcus crossed his arms. Yeah. Well, smart doesn't mean safe. We're still trapped in here. Daniel held up the key. Maybe not for long. Eric's eyes widened. Where'd you get that? Science lab. We found a clue that led us to it. Ava scoffed. Great. A key to who knows what in a school filled with monsters. Better than nothing, Lisa shot back. Marcus sighed. All right, let's think. What rooms are locked? Eric fidgeted. The principal's office, the janitor's supply room, and the basement. Everyone went silent at the last part. Nobody ever went to the basement. Ava rolled her eyes. No way. I'm not going down there. Jason smirked. Oh, so you'd rather wait here for the zombies to find us? I'd rather not get ripped apart by whatever's hiding in the dark, Ava snapped. Daniel stepped forward. Look, we don't have time to argue. We stick together, and we figure this out. Bang! Everyone jumped as a loud thud hit the classroom door. Growling. Scratching. They're here, Marcus muttered. Eric's face paled. That barricade won't hold forever. Ava grabbed a weapon. We have to get out. Now. Chris peeked out the window. No fire escape. Too high to jump. Marcus clenched his jaw. That leaves only one way. Daniel exhaled. The basement. Lisa groaned. I hate this plan. But there was no other choice. Marcus and Jason moved the desk barricade, and the moment the door was clear, they ran. The infected screamed as they stormed after them. The race to the basement had begun. And not everyone would make it. Footsteps pounded against the tiled floor as the group sprinted through the dark hallways, their lungs burning with every breath. The undead were close, too close. Faster. Marcus yelled, gripping his fire extinguisher like a battering ram. Daniel led the way, gripping the key tightly. His mind raced. The basement. The very mention of it sent a shiver down his spine. No one ever went there. It was where old equipment was stored, where forgotten things gathered dust. If the key led there, what exactly were they walking into? Take a left. Chris shouted, spotting a staircase at the end of the hall. The group skidded around the corner and froze. The stairwell was blocked. A massive metal cabinet had been knocked over, along with broken desks and old lockers. The only way down was through the wreckage. Jason cursed. Are you kidding me? The zombies were coming. Lisa turned to Daniel. Help me move this. Daniel dropped the key into his pocket and grabbed one end of the cabinet. Jason and Marcus jumped in, heaving it aside. The screech of metal against tile echoed down the hallway. Too loud. The undead heard. They screamed. A former teacher, her once kind face twisted into a monstrous snarl, lunged forward. Marcus swung the fire extinguisher. Crack. The zombie's skull split open, spraying dark, rotting blood against the lockers. Another zombie, this time a student, grabbed at Ava's shoulder. Ava shrieked, struggling to break free. Jason reacted fast, slamming the metal rod through the zombie's eye. It collapsed with a sickening thud. It's open. Chris yelled. Daniel shoved Lisa forward. Go. One by one, they leaped over the wreckage, landing on the stairs. The moment everyone was through, Marcus and Jason pulled a filing cabinet down behind them, blocking the way. The zombies slammed against it, their moans vibrating through the metal. Breathing hard, the group turned to face the basement door. It was locked. Daniel pulled out the key with shaky hands. Click. The lock turned. The door creaked open. Darkness greeted them. A long, unlit hallway stretched ahead, the air thick with dust and decay. Ava took a step back. Nope. No way. I'd rather take my chances upstairs. Be my guest, Jason muttered. I'm going. Daniel swallowed. Stick together. No wandering off. One by one, they stepped inside. The door shut behind them. And then, the lights flickered on. The group froze. The basement wasn't just a storage room. It was a lab. Steel tables lined the walls, covered in surgical tools and bloodied restraints. Test tubes filled with murky green liquid were stacked in crates. The air smelled of antiseptic and rot. Lisa gasped. What the hell? Eric stepped forward, eyes wide. This isn't normal. Chris moved toward a table. His face paled as he pointed. Look. Strapped down to the cold steel surface was a body. A student. Or at least, what was left of one. His chest had been sliced open. His heart was missing. His arms and legs were restrained with metal cuffs. His face, frozen in terror, told the story of his final moments. Ava covered her mouth, gagging. What kind of sick experiment? A sudden beep. The intercom crackled to life. Congratulations, students. You've made it this far. But the real test begins now. The corpse on the table twitched. And then, it opened its eyes. The room fell silent as the corpse on the table opened its eyes. At first, there was nothing but emptiness in its gaze, clouded, glassy, unfocused. Then, as if awakened by some unseen force, its pupils dilated. Then, it moved. Lisa let out a strangled gasp as the body twitched violently, the metal restraints clanking against the table. No way. Eric stumbled back, nearly tripping over a fallen tray of scalpels. Ava's breathing quickened. That thing was dead. I saw it. Chris's voice was barely above a whisper. Not anymore. The intercom crackled again. Meet Subject 0. The first success of our research. Unlike the others, he doesn't just hunt, he thinks. Daniel's heart pounded. Thinks? The thing on the table stopped struggling. Slowly, it turned its head toward them. A twisted smile pulled at its cracked lips. It understood. And that's when it snapped the metal restraints as if they were made of paper. Move! Marcus roared. The group scattered as Subject Zero lunged. It wasn't like the zombies they had encountered before, it wasn't slow, or clumsy. It moved with terrifying precision. Jason swung his metal rod. Thwack! Zero caught it midair. Jason's eyes widened in horror. With a sickening crunch, Zero twisted the rod in his hands, bending it in half. Oh, screw this. Ava grabbed a scalpel from the table and hurled it at Zero's face. Zero tilted its head at the last second. The blade missed by mere inches. Ava paled. Oh, we are so dead. Chris yanked open a supply cabinet. There's gotta be something we can use. Lisa grabbed Daniel's arm. The key. There must be another door down here. Daniel's fingers fumbled in his pocket as he scanned the room. And then, he saw it. A security door at the far end of the lab. A red biohazard sign was painted across it. There, he yelled. Marcus and Jason charged forward, shoving a metal table into Zero's path, buying precious seconds as the group bolted for the door. Daniel rammed the key into the lock. Click. The door swung open. Go, go, go. Everyone poured through, but Zero was already recovering. It locked eyes with Daniel, and grinned. Then, with an almost human laugh, it whispered. I'll find you. Daniel slammed the door shut. The lock clicked just as Zero smashed into it from the other side. The pounding was deafening. Lisa pressed a hand to her chest. What the hell was that? Eric was shaking. That wasn't a normal zombie. That was something else. Marcus exhaled sharply. We need to get out of here. Now. Daniel turned to face the new room they had entered. It wasn't a storage closet. It was a control room. Rows of monitors flickered to life, showing live camera feeds from different parts of the school. The hallways. The gym. The cafeteria. And the other survivors. There were more. And they were being hunted. Jason swallowed hard. We're not alone. Daniel clenched his fists. Then we save them. But deep down, he knew. Zero wasn't done with them yet. The monitors flickered, casting an eerie glow over the terrified group. Each screen showed a different part of the school, hallways filled with wandering zombies, classrooms where students cowered behind overturned desks, and a blood-smeared gymnasium where something big moved in the shadows. But it was the cafeteria feed that made Daniel's blood run cold. More survivors. At least 6 of them, barricaded inside. They had stacked chairs and tables against the doors, but outside, a horde of undead pressed against the glass. They were trapped. We have to help them, Daniel said, his voice firm. Ava scoffed. You're joking, right? We barely survived getting down here, and you want to go back up there? Jason shook his head. She's right. We don't even know if we can reach them. Lisa grabbed a keyboard and started pressing keys. The screens flickered through different rooms until a map of the school appeared. Chris leaned in. There. A maintenance tunnel. It runs under the cafeteria. Eric frowned. You mean, the old service tunnels? The ones they sealed off years ago? Marcus cracked his knuckles. Then we unseal them. A sudden thud against the control room door made everyone jump. Zero. It was still out there. And it was laughing. A human laugh. Lisa grabbed Daniel's arm. We need to move. Now. Daniel took a deep breath and nodded. Then let's go. The service tunnels. The group navigated through the basement, moving fast. The air was thick with dust, the walls lined with rusted pipes. Faded keep-out signs covered the doors. "This is it," Chris whispered, stopping in front of an old metal hatch. A rusted chain was looped through the handles, secured with a heavy lock. Jason tested the chain. "It's solid." Marcus grinned, raising his fire extinguisher. Not for long. With a loud crash, he smashed the lock open. The chain fell away. The hatch creaked as it swung open, revealing a dark tunnel. Lisa shuddered. "I hate this." "No time to complain," Marcus said, climbing in first. "Let's go." One by one, they dropped into the darkness. The tunnel was narrow and damp, the air thick with the smell of mildew and something rotting. As they moved deeper, the sound of scraping echoed through the tunnel. Jason tensed. "Tell me that's just rats." Eric gulped. "I don't think so." A soft, wet growl filled the air. And then something moved. A shadow rushed toward them. Ava screamed. The hunt had begun. The darkness came alive. From the shadows, figures lunged forward, crawling along the walls and ceiling like predators. Their eyes glowed faintly, their bodies twisted and malformed. They weren't like the other zombies, these were faster, quieter, and far more dangerous. "Run!" Daniel shouted. The group sprinted down the tunnel, their footsteps echoing against the damp walls. The creatures snarled, their claws scraping against the concrete as they pursued. Ava tripped, her scream echoing through the tunnel. Jason grabbed her arm and yanked her forward just in time as one of the creatures lunged where she had just been. Lisa gasped. "What the hell are those things?" Eric panted. "Not zombies, something worse." Chris pointed ahead. "The exit." "I see a ladder." The tunnel opened into a larger underground chamber. In the center, an old maintenance ladder led up to a rusty grate, their way into the cafeteria. But before they could reach it, a figure dropped from the ceiling. Zero. He stood between them and the ladder, his eerie grin stretching across his decayed face. His voice was smooth, almost human. "Going somewhere?" Marcus cursed. "You again?" Zero tilted his head. "I told you I'd find you." Lisa pulled out a rusted pipe. "We're not scared of you." Zero chuckled. "You should be." Behind him, more creatures crawled from the walls. The group was surrounded. Chris whispered, "We're dead." Daniel's grip tightened around the key in his pocket. No. They weren't dead yet. "We fight," he said. "We don't have a choice." Jason grinned. "Hell yeah." Zero's smile faded. "Then let's begin." And with unnatural speed, he lunged. The final battle. Marcus swung his fire extinguisher, aiming for Zero's head, but Zero dodged effortlessly. He grabbed Marcus by the throat and slammed him into the wall. Jason and Chris attacked together. Jason stabbed with his metal rod, but Zero caught it midair and snapped it in half. Chris threw a wrench at his face, Zero barely flinched. Lisa and Ava fought the other creatures, using anything they could find as weapons. One of them tackled Lisa to the ground, its jaws snapping inches from her throat. Daniel saw her struggling, but he had an idea. The control panel. On the far side of the chamber, a rusted power box flickered dimly. If it still worked. He ran. Zero noticed. "Oh no, you don't." Zero moved faster than any human should, grabbing Daniel's shirt. But Daniel twisted free, grabbing a rusted crowbar from the ground. He swung. Crack. Zero staggered back, dazed. Daniel turned and slammed the crowbar into the power box. Sparks exploded. Electricity surged through the metal pipes, frying the creatures clinging to the walls. Zero screamed as the shock ripped through his body. Daniel collapsed, panting. Did it work? Smoke filled the chamber. The creatures were still. Marcus coughed, pushing himself up. Did we win? Ava looked around. I think so. A metallic creak. They all turned. Above them, the cafeteria grate had broken loose. It was their way out. Lisa pulled Daniel to his feet. Let's go. One by one, they climbed the ladder, racing toward their escape. But as Daniel reached the top, he glanced back. Zero was gone. And in the shadows, a voice whispered. This isn't over. The cafeteria was eerily silent when the group pulled themselves up through the broken grate. The once familiar space was now a battlefield, tables overturned, blood smeared across the tile, the smell of rot thick in the air. At the far end, the other survivors huddled behind a barricade of chairs and vending machines. Their faces were pale, their eyes filled with fear. One of them, a girl named Megan, stood up cautiously. You're alive? Jason smirked. Yeah, and we're not planning on dying anytime soon. Before Megan could reply, a low growl rumbled through the air. The horde was still outside. Hundreds of undead pressed against the glass doors, their decayed fingers scratching against the windows. The barricade wouldn't hold much longer. Daniel turned to the others. We need to get out of here. Chris checked the emergency exit. It's locked. Lisa groaned. Of course it is. Marcus glanced around. There's gotta be another way. Then, the intercom crackled to life. Congratulations, survivors. You've made it to the final test. Ava stiffened. No. No, he's still alive. Daniel clenched his fists. Zero. The voice continued. The doors will open in 5 minutes. You have 2 choices, run, or fight. The cafeteria doors clicked. The lock was disengaged. The horde outside stirred. Jason cursed. He's letting them in. Megan's group panicked. We're dead. We're all dead. Daniel's mind raced. No, we're not. There's a way out. He pointed to the air vents above the kitchen. If we can get up there, we can crawl out before the zombies break in. Chris frowned. What if they follow? Daniel's jaw tightened. Then we make sure they don't. The final stand. Marcus and Jason pushed tables beneath the vent, helping people climb up one by one. Lisa boosted Ava up first. Go. Ava wiggled through the tight space, leading the others. Boom. The cafeteria doors burst open. The undead rushed in. Hurry. Marcus shouted. Chris climbed up, then Lisa. Jason shoved Megan up next. But before Marcus could follow, a hand grabbed his ankle. A zombie pulled him down. Marcus! Daniel yelled. Marcus struggled, kicking wildly, but there were too many. Jason grabbed his arm. Hold on. But Marcus knew. He looked at Jason, then at Daniel. And he shoved Jason away. Go! Daniel's heart clenched. No. Marcus grinned. Someone's gotta hold them off. Then, he charged. Swinging his fire extinguisher like a madman, Marcus smashed through the undead, buying the others time. Jason's hands trembled. We can't just leave him. Daniel's throat tightened. We don't have a choice. Ava's voice called from above. Come on. With one last look at Marcus, they climbed. Escape, and one last warning. The vent led them out of the school. They dropped down onto the empty street, the cold night air filling their lungs. They were alive. But they had lost Marcus. Jason punched a wall. Damn it. Ava wiped her tears. We made it, but at what cost? Daniel took a shaky breath. We keep moving. For Marcus. But as they turned to leave, a radio nearby crackled. And Zero's voice whispered. The test isn't over. Daniel's blood ran cold. Somewhere. Zero was still out there. Watching. Waiting. And this was just the beginning.